I got sucked into a Glenn Beck YouTube video with a thumbnail that said, "This is evil," in all caps. New York has crossed a line, and I couldn't help myself. I clicked on it, and of course, it was about what Glenn Beck was calling the worst piece of legislation yet. This is pretty bad. It's not the worst I've seen, but let's dig into it and see what's going on in New York and why you need to be concerned about this. Hey, everybody, I'm Julie Barrett, and I'm the founder of Conservative Ladies of America, and I am back with another bill of the day. Today, we are going to be talking about a piece of legislation that has made its way through the New York legislature and is now on Governor Kathy Hochul's desk to be signed. It is Senate Bill S-138, and it is about assisted suicide. But as with most things, the radical left, or the party of death, as I like to call them, they have rebranded this, calling this the Medical Aid in Dying Act. 2 years ago, we were very involved as conservative ladies of Washington with a piece of legislation in Washington state that was to expand on Washington's Death with Dignity Act. Now, the reason why I wanted to do a video on this particular bill is because it's not something that only Democrats are concerned with. In fact, the prime sponsor of the expansion of the Death with Dignity Act in Washington state in 2023 was Republican Senator Curtis King. The House bill companion was prime sponsored by Republican Skylar Rude. Skylar is in a leadership position in the Washington State House, and Senator Curtis King has been in the legislature for quite a long time. He is kind of the head of transportation stuff. When this bill was first pre-filed in December of 2022, I sent an email to Senator King begging him to not sponsor this piece of legislation. At the time that it was pre-filed, he was the only sponsor of the bill, and he was gracious enough to reply, but he did say that he would not be removing his name from the bill, that he felt that it was a necessary and important piece of legislation. Republican Representative Skylar Rude put out a press release after the signing of the Senate bill, which was SB 5179 in 2023. He put out a picture in his press release of him being at the bill signing with then Governor Jay Inslee. And so with policies like this, it's not always just the Democrats. And so that's why it's important for us to be engaged and for us to be talking with Republican legislators, especially because of the two parties, they're probably the most likely that we can influence to change their votes, especially in these blue states where they really need as many friends as they can get. And I think citizen pressure in a polite and respectful way can be very effective. Now, the New York bill really takes this to a new level. The Washington bill in 2023 expanded the list of providers that would be able to prescribe these lethal medications for patients. It also moved the waiting period from 15 days down to 7 days. So someone could go from diagnosis to 7 days from then having this lethal medication in their hands. The New York bill is really bad. There is no waiting period. So, in theory, you could get your diagnosis for cancer today and you could get the lethal medication tomorrow. Now, in both cases with Washington and New York, you have to be a resident of the state. You have to be able to prove that you are a resident of the state with ID, a utility bill, a mortgage, a rental agreement, or something like that. You also have to fill out a form, and there have to be witnesses that sign on your form. In the case of the New York bill, a mental health evaluation is not necessary unless the prescribing doctor feels that it is necessary. So really, they're totally bypassing the mental health evaluation. The New York bill also has protections for doctors who prescribe this. So there is no liability for these doctors who are prescribing these lethal medications. Now, here are some particularly interesting points about S-138 out of New York. It does not affect life insurance benefits. So if you were a patient patient in New York and you decided to do this lethal medication, you would not be putting your life insurance beneficiaries at risk of not being able to collect their benefits. Now, here's what is particularly evil. The death certificate will list the underlying terminal illness as the cause of death. So it will not say anything about lethal medication or assisted suicide or anything like that. So if you have been diagnosed with a terminal illness such as cancer, it would list the cancer as the cause of death. Now, here's the thing that I think is most important with legislation like this. These things are inched along. So, like the Washington bill I was telling you about earlier, that was an update and an expansion to an existing policy, the Death with Dignity Act, that passed in Washington state in 2009. And so they come back and they expand on these things, whether it is abortion or so called gender affirming care or assisted suicide. Now, I believe New York is similar to Washington in that assisted suicide is already on their protected health care list. From my experience in watching legislation over these past few years, this protected health care is the death agenda. It's the abortion, the gender affirming care, and the assisted suicide. And they're very concerned with strengthening the laws and expanding the laws around these to not only protect the providers, but to make these services more and more available, make it easier to get, make them taxpayer funded. And so it's really important for citizens to be watching this. Maybe you're like me. I lived in Washington up until 2 years ago, and this Death with Dignity Act passed in 2009. I didn't even know about it until 2022 when the expansion bill was dropped in December. And I think that's probably the case with most of us. There are all these laws on the books, and none of us really know. These assisted suicide laws have a huge ability to be misused and abused by people in the healthcare industry. As we know, the Democrats are the party of death. They don't have any regard for the sanctity of human life. And so, and it's my belief as a Christian that God has numbered my days and he has already predetermined a day that I will go home to meet my maker. And that is not up to me to get to change and decide when that day is going to be. I imagine that there are so many, painful things with many diseases, and it's not just on the patient, but their family and their caregivers. And there's such a responsibility and sometimes a very heavy burden that comes along with these things. But it is not our role as humans to be playing God when it comes to life. And as someone who is very pro-life from cradle to grave, there is no way I can support a policy like this. And it's very concerning to me that we have people on the Republican side that do support these policies and they support expanding them. And sometimes I think it's because they feel like it's the compassionate thing to do, but truly it is not. It is taking matters into our own hands, and it is baby stepping things into a very dangerous place, such as what we have going on in New York. Now, like I said, the bill is on Governor Kathy Hochul's desk to be signed. I don't anticipate that she will veto this bill. I fully anticipate that she will sign it. As you remember, back during COVID, you had Andrew Cuomo, who was letting people die in nursing homes, and just awful. And they really have no regard for human life. So if you happen to be watching this and you live in New York and the bill has not been signed yet, I've got all of the information down in the description of this video. If you'd like to call Governor Hochul and ask her to veto S-138, I think that would be a great thing to do. And like I say, even when we know that they're probably going to do it anyway, it's great to have your opposition on the record and not to be one who said, I sat in silence when I knew better and I could have spoken up and I didn't. So please do that. I have got a link to the bill below as well if you would like to go check it out for yourself. We have a big Washington audience as well. So I'm going to put some information on Washington's Death with Dignity Act in there as well, so that you can go learn about the details of Washington's law. We put out a ton of content during the 2023 session, hopefully breaking it down and making it easy for you to understand. If you're not already, please do subscribe to our YouTube channel and to our Substack, as that is the best way to get breaking alerts and calls to action. Please do give the video a thumbs up, as that does help the YouTube algorithm and helps more people see our videos. Leave a comment below. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on this whole assisted suicide party of death crap that we've got going on in New York. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.